My mother's text arrived at 9:47 on a Tuesday night, and she sent it to the wrong thread. I was at my kitchen table with a spreadsheet open, pricing out centerpieces for Thanksgiving. The dinner I'd been hosting every year for 6 years. The one I planned every November like a second job, when my phone buzzed against the wood. I picked it up expecting a reply from the florist. 4 words from my mother, dropped into our family group chat by mistake. "Don't worry, she'll handle it." My brother responded with a thumbs up before I could finish reading. My mother caught her mistake within 30 seconds. "Wrong thread, lol." She sent, followed by 3 laughing faces, like it was a minor autocorrect situation. Like I hadn't just been handed the clearest window into how my family talked about me, when I wasn't supposed to hear. I set my phone face down on the table. I didn't ask what thread she meant, or what exactly I'd be handling. I already knew. My brother had mentioned, almost in passing, 2 days before, that money was tight and he probably couldn't chip in for groceries this year. I'd told him not to worry about it. What I didn't know was that my mother had already gone to the rest of the family and told them not to bother, because I would cover it. The way I always covered it. The way I had always covered everything, for as long as I could remember. The spreadsheet in front of me looked different now. Flowers, $87, table linens, $45, turkey and sides, estimated $230. My name, my card, my Sunday afternoon unloading bags alone while everyone arrived at 6 with nothing but an appetite. I closed the laptop. I hadn't planned to dig into anything that night. I was tired. I had a deadline the next morning, and a load of laundry I'd been ignoring all week. But that text had settled in my chest like a small stone, and I found myself opening my banking app almost without deciding to. I told myself I was just checking my balance. I am 31 years old, and I work in finance. I spend my days helping clients track their money, protect their assets, and notice when something doesn't add up. I am careful. I am thorough. I am the kind of person who catches errors other people miss. It had never occurred to me to turn those skills on my own accounts. Looking back, I think I understood somewhere below conscious thought that I didn't want to see what I'd find. Because my family had a way of making financial things feel like love. When I co-signed my brother's first car loan at 26, my mother cried and said she didn't know what they'd do without me. When I set up the joint savings account with my parents for family emergencies, my father said I was the most responsible person he'd ever known. When I added my brother and his wife to my cell phone plan because they needed a month to sort out their carrier situation, my mother told everyone at Christmas what a good sister I was. These things happened one at a time, spread out over years, and each one felt reasonable in the moment, even generous, even right. That's the thing about gradual erosion. You don't notice the ground shifting beneath you until you look down. I started with the joint account. The one I'd opened with my parents 7 years ago, after my grandmother passed and left a small inheritance that everyone agreed should go toward family stability. My contribution had been the largest. I hadn't checked the balance in over a year. There had been $4,200 in that account the last time I looked. There was $312 in it now. I sat very still. I went through the transaction history, scrolling backward through months I hadn't monitored, and what I found was not one large withdrawal. It was small ones. 80 here, 120 there. Occasional 250s that fell on dates I couldn't immediately place. Steady. Regular. Going back 19 months. I got out a notepad. I could have opened a spreadsheet, but there was something about writing it by hand that made it feel real in a way the screen didn't. I listed the amounts. I ran the total. $3,740 spent. Withdrawn by my mother, over a year and a half, without a word to me. I flipped to a new page. The cell phone plan was next. 4 years ago, I'd added my brother and his wife to my plan while they were between carriers. They'd said they needed a month to sort things out. I checked the current bill. 4 lines, my line, my brother's, his wife's, and a 4th activated 8 months ago, connected to a device I had never touched. $172 a month. 3 lines I was not using. I wrote that down. Then I pulled up the loan records connected to my name. I'd done this for hundreds of clients over the years. I had never done it for myself. The same reason doctors make the worst patients. You assume you already know what's there. My brother's auto loan from 2020 appeared first, co-signed by me. I had agreed to that one, reluctantly, with the understanding that he'd refinance it into his name alone within 18 months. That had been 4 years ago. It had not been refinanced. Then a second loan. A lease agreement from 2022. A different vehicle, also co-signed in my name. I hadn't signed this. I went back through my email, my texts, my calendar. There was no conversation where I'd agreed, no document, no memory. I stared at my name in the paperwork for a long time, waiting for some context to surface that would make it make sense. Nothing surfaced. I looked down at the notepad. 4 numbers at the bottom of the page, totaled twice just to be sure. And then I remembered something I had been trying not to think about for 2 years. I turned 30 on a Tuesday in November. It fell the same week as Thanksgiving, which was my own fault for being born in November. I didn't ask for anything elaborate. Just a small birthday dinner, the Thursday before the holiday, just my family. I sent a reminder 2 weeks out. I mentioned it again, the weekend before. The day of, my brother texted to say he and his wife had a prior commitment and hoped I'd understand. My mother said she'd been meaning to call about that. A work thing had come up. She was so sorry. My father didn't text at all. He called the next morning, cheerful, to ask what time I needed them for Thanksgiving setup. I ate dinner alone that night. I ordered Thai food and watched something on Netflix and did not let myself think too hard about it, because if I thought too hard about it, I would understand something I wasn't ready to understand. The week before that birthday, I had spent 6 evenings scheduling caterers for Thanksgiving. Confirming the linens. Buying the decorations my mother had requested. Orange and gold. She liked those because they photographed well. I sat in the dark and told myself this was just how families were sometimes. People got busy. It didn't mean anything. I don't know what made me open Instagram after that. I typed my mother's name into the search bar and found her account. Her most recent post was from 3 weeks ago. My parents' 35th anniversary dinner. I had organized that dinner. I'd spent 2 weeks researching the restaurant, made the reservations 6 months in advance, sent the deposit from my personal account. I had been there. I had been at that table. The photo showed my parents, my brother, and his wife, arranged beautifully, a bottle of wine open between them. The restaurant's warm lighting making everything glow. My mother's caption read, 35 years and still the best thing that ever happened to me. So grateful for these 3 by my side. These 3. I counted the people in the photo. 4, including my parents. The framing was perfect. There was no gap where I might have been cropped out. I'd simply not been included in the shot. Excluded from the frame before the shutter clicked, the way you'd leave out background furniture you didn't want in the picture. I set my phone down, picked it up again, set it down. There's a kind of pain that doesn't arrive as shock or rage. Those come later. This kind arrives as a slow, heavy settling. Something in your chest-making room for a new weight it has just agreed to carry. I sat with it for a few minutes. Then I picked up the notepad. The next morning I woke before my alarm. The apartment was gray and quiet in a way that felt deliberate. I made coffee and sat at my table. And I was calm in the specific way you can only be calm when you've already done the hard emotional work overnight, while you were technically sleeping, but actually not sleeping at all. I called the cell carrier at 8 a.m. and removed the 3 lines that were not mine. I was polite. The representative asked if there was anything else he could help with. I said no thank you and hung up. My brother called 11 minutes later. I watched his name on the screen until it went to voicemail. I opened the joint savings account and transferred the remaining $312 to my personal checking. Then I closed the joint account. I was on hold with the bank for 9 minutes. It was the most peaceful 9 minutes I'd had in recent memory. Then the automatic transfers. I had set one up 3 years ago, $200 a month into my parents' household account, during a difficult stretch for them. Their stretch had improved. The transfer had not stopped. I canceled it. I changed the passwords on every streaming account registered under my email. I sent a request to the restaurant for an itemized receipt from the anniversary dinner. Not to dispute anything, just to have it for my own records. The total was $430, paid by me. Not mentioned in the caption. My phone buzzed. My mother, honey, your brother says his phone isn't working. Did something happen with the plan? I read it, I did not respond. By 11, I had also documented the unauthorized cosign and placed a call to a legal referral line to understand my options. Then I opened my email and spent 40 minutes writing to my family. I rewrote it 4 times. The first version was too long. The second was too cold. The third explained too much, justified too much, apologized in ways I had no business apologizing. The fourth version was 3 short paragraphs. The first paragraph laid out what I'd found. Numbers, dates, account names. No adjectives, no accusations, just what I could document. The second paragraph was 1 sentence. Effective today. I am withdrawing my financial participation from this family. The third paragraph was also 1 sentence. I won't be hosting Thanksgiving this year. I read it over once. I clicked send. Then I sat still and waited to feel something dramatic. I didn't. I felt the way you feel when you've finally submitted something you've been putting off for far too long. Tired and quiet and done. I turned my phone face down on the counter and called my friend Tamara. Come now, she said, before I'd finished explaining much of anything. I'll order pizza. Tamara lives 20 minutes from me, in a small house with too many houseplants and a dog with a ridiculous name I can never keep straight. She opened the door before I knocked and handed me a glass of water without being asked, which is the mark of a person who truly knows you. I told her everything. Not dramatically, methodically, the way I tend to explain things, going through the notepad at her kitchen table. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That's financial abuse. I want you to hear those 2 words. What they did has a name." I'd been thinking around the edges of that phrase all day. Hearing it said out loud did something I hadn't anticipated. My throat tightened, not from sadness, but from the specific relief of being seen accurately, named correctly, believed without qualification. I know, I said. And you're not going to Thanksgiving. I'm not going to Thanksgiving. She nodded once. Good. I spent that night at her house. The next morning I drove home and found a small package on my doorstep, the kind with a shipping label taped unevenly across the top, clearly packed by hand. My cousin had been mailing things from my aunt's estate for a few weeks. Small objects my aunt had tagged for specific people years ago, before she got sick. My aunt passed in March. My father's older sister, the kind of woman who brought the same dish to every family gathering for 30 years, and refused to write down the recipe because she said she liked being needed. I brought the box inside and opened it at my kitchen table. Inside was a handwritten recipe card for sweet potato pie. Her handwriting, slanted, unhurried, the kind that leaves an impression in the paper. Every measurement was listed, every step written out. The recipe she'd promised to write down for years and kept not doing. Behind it was a second card, smaller, different pen, clearly written on a different day. Sella, it read. If you're reading this, I finally put something in writing. I've watched you hold that family together for a long time, and I've always wished someone would hold you the same way. The table is only as beautiful as the people who truly belong at it. One day, I hope you'll build your own. All my love. I sat at my kitchen table and let myself cry properly for the first time in days. Not because I was sad, though I was, but because my aunt had been trying to hand me this permission for years, quietly, from the corner of every Thanksgiving room I had set up and decorated and worried over. And it had taken all of this for me to finally be in the right position to receive it. Thanksgiving happened without me for the first time in 6 years. My sister-in-law posted a photo of the table. The centerpieces were slightly lopsided. The tablecloths were the wrong shade. There were takeout containers visible on the counter in the background of the shot. My mother sent a text, "We missed you. Hope you're okay." No mention of the email. No acknowledgement of anything I'd written. I was at Tamara's house, eating store-bought pecan pie and watching something neither of us had the attention span for, and I was more at peace than I had been at any family gathering I could remember. In the weeks that followed, my brother left 2 more voicemails, Carefully worded, friendlier than warranted. The register of someone who has realized they may have lost something they depended on. My mother called 3 times. My father sent one text. Call me when you're ready. I wasn't ready. I didn't know if I would be. I was learning to sit with that, not knowing, and to find that sitting with it was actually survivable. What I did do, I met with an attorney about the unauthorized cosign. I opened a new savings account in my name alone. I changed my emergency contact at work. I took my aunt's note, had it laminated, and tucked it into the back of my wallet where I'd find it every time I reached for something. The only name on my accounts is mine. That sentence had been living somewhere in my chest for years, waiting for words to form around it. Now it had words. And weight. And once a thing like that finds its shape, you can't put it back. It just becomes part of who you are. I'm making my aunt's sweet potato pie this December. Small dinner, my apartment, my guest list, my name on the text that went out to invite people. For the first time in 6 years, I'm looking forward to the holidays, without that low familiar dread settling into my chest the week before. I'm not claiming I'm past the anger. I'm not performing a recovery I haven't finished. But I've stopped needing my family to acknowledge what happened before I'm allowed to move. That need, the one where you wait for the people who hurt you to confirm that it was real, was costing me more than the $3,700. I set the table with people who belong at it now. I finally understand what my aunt meant.